Hi, Miki. Hi, everyone. Welcome
Hello.
to our leadership book of the month, one of our conversations that we'll have this month. Miki, I'm so excited to share you with my network and with folks that are joining live. You know what, I forget to go on LinkedIn and see if anybody's on or on YouTube. But if you're on, please leave a comment, and you're welcome to say hello to Miki or ask any questions along the way. Share your experience about the book if you've read it. We're here to talk about Miki's new book, Core Leadership, and it's a 4-step framework to lead yourself, grow your influence, and amplify your impact. So important. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me for a conversation about it. So I have some things lined up to talk about, and then I feel like we need to have another conversation for like my personal therapy or questions about the book. But today my focus is for the leaders that are connected through the MBA program that I teach in, through the LinkedIn network that I have, through anybody that's looking to advance their leadership. And especially, I love how you use influence and impact. And so we'll dive in. And I want to just tell everybody a little bit about you for a quick second. So we're joined by Miki Feldman Simon, who I know and admire. And she is an executive coach, a global business leader and traveler, a speaker, 3 decades of experience helping high-performing leaders and having teams in operations and marketing and HR, and guiding organizations through growth and successful acquisition. So that's part of my network too, the M&A experience and scaling up companies and all of those things. I really like books that are written from a perspective of experience and then backed with some research and stories. But I always prefer these over the ones that are highly academic and people write about leadership and haven't held leadership roles or haven't been influential in organizations. And you've had that in spades in a variety of different kinds of organizations and industries. And so I could see that throughout the book, and was so grateful that you wrote that and came up with this framework. And so all of that to say welcome.
Well, thank you, Kelly, as a fellow person that I greatly admire and cherish to have in my circle. And yes. I will add to what you said that sometimes if you read a book that's more academic as well, you know, it's interesting, but there isn't real insight and impact. And for me, when writing the book, it was important for it to be practical and usable, so that there's exercises in there. So if I talk about a concept, you know what to do next. I give you tools for what to do next, because I am a very practical person and in my approach, and I want to really add value to people and to take insight and shift it into action as well, and into impact.
You did a beautiful job with that in the structure of the book when you introduce a concept and core, the CORE, we'll go through those in a sec, but they have a section of the book, but you didn't just, you did explain it and you had different components, and then you'd say, and that would look like this. And that's where a good author would stop there. But then you have sections called Your Turn, and then you give the specifics. Like I felt like I could just have a notebook handy or, you know, open a document and just start typing right away. And, you know, when you get to those sections, it was so specific and so clear, tied back to what you had shared. So I really appreciated that. And I know my audience will too. So yeah, nice work on that.
Thank you. That was the goal.
Yeah.
Really guide you through. In some ways, not everybody can afford an executive coach, and it's a bit of a coach in your pocket, the book as well.
Yes, I recognized a lot of those, some of the same tools that I use, many added to my collection, but definitely the coaching questions and the deeper, you know, you didn't just ask one question for our reflections, there were several, and some of them stung more than others. And I think if I read it 6 months from now, different ones would sting more than others, you know, so it was really great.
And Kelly, that's the idea as well. I think that different parts will resonate at this part of people's lives, and something else will resonate in the future. And I hope that people do come back and revisit when suddenly they're thinking of a trigger or their self-talk, or like, I'm really thinking about my habits now. Mm-hmm. And they'll come back and realize that, okay, this is more fitting at a certain point, because it's also, change we need to make in small increments. We can't do all the work at once. Right. So to choose something to work through that, and then that 1%, and create the greater impact afterwards.
How would you talk to a leader about maintaining their self-esteem during that? So when they haven't worked through it yet, or they don't know, they can't see the whole picture yet. And so 1%, it seems pretty small. So how do you talk about that?
Well, I think the first part of it is accepting that we're not perfect. Because when we come from that realization and really accepting that we're all a work in progress. So that's the first part. Okay, so if I'm a work in progress, I'm working on improving myself every day. Mm-hmm. The other part of it, and I talk about it in the book, is the learning curve, right?
Yeah.
That we start something with full excitement, right? This is a great idea. I want to get in. I'm going to think about my self-talk. And as that excitement sort of wins off and things get harder, because they do, right? Mm-hmm. There's a slope. But then if we stick with it, it gets easier again as we master it, and as we overcome that challenge. But understanding that it's all part of the process. It's like life, right? There's ups and there's downs. So in learning, there is ups and downs. And you know what? There's also something sometimes just click, mm-hmm. and we go with it. And sometimes things are a little bit harder, but it doesn't mean that you're necessarily doing something wrong. It could be that maybe it's a habit of how you've been doing things for so long, it's hard to change. Mm-hmm. But you can if you stick with it.
Yeah, and I think that's if you stick with it, even when something is hard, or it's easy to change a habit or practice new behaviors at work as a leader. But then when budgets are cut, or the big customer leaves, or the CEO leaves and there's a new boss, or then you go into to your self-protection mode, or you revert back to things that you're more familiar with, and the new things you're trying can go out the window.
Right, exactly. And I think, again, going back and zooming out and knowing that this is part of the path, right? Mm-hmm. We will lose customers. Mm-hmm. That is part of life. We'll also gain new great ones.
Right.
So how do we overcome this challenge in a positive way, not get stuck, right, in that low, and spiral with the, oh my God, we lost this customer, but rather, okay, what can we learn from it? What can we do different in the future, mm-hmm. and move forward?
Yes, and that ties in with the R, with the reflection, and then the E, evaluate. The other thing I talk with clients sometimes about, recognizing when you're on one of those downs, mm-hmm. don't deny it or act like it's not there. Recognize it, and then you're figure out how to get back up, and it needs to be in scale. So don't spiral over a speeding ticket. I'm like, that's a whole thing for me. But don't spiral over something. You didn't hurt anybody. You have to pay this $100 or whatever. That's painful in the moment, but figure that out pretty quickly and get back up. And if you're complaining about that all day long, you're in your own head, and also that's influencing other people, your decision making to break the law, and to how you're reacting to that, and victim mentality and kind of stuff like that. Above the line, below the line.
Right.
That you talk about. Yeah. So I think having knowing where you are on that line, I guess, is part of recognizing the ups and downs of life, and where you are and where you want to be.
So, Kelly, I think the biggest difference in my life happened when I realized that in every situation I have a choice. Mm. That whether for me it's more like traffic rather than it used to be. Honestly, nowadays I amaze myself. I sometimes watch myself in the car and I think, oh well, there's traffic, whatever,
Yeah.
it's out of my control. And I use all these little things used to upset me, but I would also take that feeling into the rest of the day.
Right.
And when I internalized, because there's a very big difference between sort of knowing to internalizing, that at every moment I have a choice. I can now choose how I show up to the next meeting. I can choose what I take with me into the rest of the day. And a big part of this, by the way, is pausing and asking, who do I want to be right now? Because when in the moment, do I want to be, this not nice, whatever, going into this meeting? No.
Right.
Rarely would anybody say that that's how they want to go into the next thing, but we have to take that pause. And that's a big part of the reflect, understanding how we get in our own way, pausing so that we can show up as our best. We can be a lot more intentional and we can respond rather than react.
Yeah. And that's in any situation. I appreciate your perspective on that. And so while doing that whole entire thing might be a new process for a lot of people, the pausing is where you start. And so just don't let words come out of your mouth that you don't want to have tied to your reputation. And just give yourself that moment to pause and then figure out how you want to be going forward. I decided you go.
Often, the price you'll pay or the work you'll need to do to repair those words that came out of your mouth that shouldn't, it's so much more work.
Right.
That it's really not worth it. Take a second, take a deep breath. And taking a deep breath really, really makes a difference. It just...
Yes.
Now, who do I want to be? And show up as that other person that you can do. So you don't need to put in all of that repair work afterwards.
Right. And so when you think about the practical ways this book helps leaders, that's one, that you don't have to repair as many things afterwards. And what you're talking about here also ties in with Margot Boster's book that I talked about a couple weeks ago, Mindfully Successful. And so some overlap there with hers. And I think you might know her.
I actually don't. I listened to part of your
okay.
live,
Yeah, she's fantastic too. And I recognized a lot of books that you refer to, and I've done this leadership book of the month for over 4 years, and have talked about a lot of those books on that broadcast.
Right. Yes, the book is definitely also based on psychology, behavioral, organizational psychology, and I do quote quite a few other people's work in there as well.
Well, and I admired that because they did the work. You didn't need to repeat the work. They did that. They researched that. The level of habits. You referred to 2 different books, and one of them goes into way more of the data than the other, and I forget which is which, but you referred to both of them.
Right. I think the habits, Atomic Habits is one of the ones I definitely referred to. But, it's interesting because I think that often people have this need that they need to completely reinvent the wheel.
Right.
And if you think of innovation, often it is pulling some things together. It is thinking about things from a different perspective, a different way, like core. Kelly, can I explain what core stands for? Because we refer to it a few different
times. Exactly. We just go right in.
Yes, the core builds on a lot of, takes in a lot of different work that is already been out there, but really puts it as a framework for people to be able to lead themselves and get out of autopilot and having their old habits and old triggers, everything else run them rather than them lead themselves. So C stands for clarify, and you clarify your values, your priorities, your strengths. What does success mean for you? So at the end, you have this definition for yourself of who you want to be. So we talk a lot about what you want to do, but this is more like who. How do you want to show up? What do you want your character, your leadership style to be like, so you can live and lead with intention, with integrity, with authenticity. And the O is operationalize. So I said I'm quite practical. And the idea here is, look, we're very good at talking. We're all good at talking. We're not so good at doing. So the operationalize is really taking those values, those priorities, and looking at how you're going to put it into action. What habits? Sometimes you need to get rid of some habits. Sometimes you need to establish new habits. And really putting that intention into action. The reflect goes a bit deeper, and we really look at how we get in our own way. We all get in our own way, whether that's our self-talk, our triggers, our limiting beliefs, understanding a lot more what's going on in our head, and really the self-imposed barriers that we put there, and those patterns that we keep repeating that are not helping us. And the evaluate has two aspects. One part of it is really evaluating your progress. How am I doing? How am I showing up in the way that I intended? And the other part of it is that we judge ourselves on our intentions, but others judge us by our impact, by our behaviors. And here we seek feedback from other people to really understand if our behaviors are coming across as we intended. And the idea here is that throughout you're building trust, this is how you show up really with integrity, and understand the impact that you're making. And at the end, you become the leader that others want to follow. Because we often think about leadership from managing other people, leading other people, but here you are becoming that kind of leader that others want to follow.
Yeah, and I think people can tell if there's a disconnect. So even the top leaders are good people. You know, I work with a lot of great people, but they need this too, this framework we all, like, lifelong continue this process. But when you're kind of out of sync, I think people can tell, even if you don't say anything, they can tell that you don't really love that new product that you're coming up with, or that you didn't really buy into that strategic option, or, you know, or you're struggling with this person. And so whatever it is, that wherever that disconnect is, figuring it out sooner rather than later, so you can be the influential person that you want and feel good inside.
Exactly. And, you know, I found that often part of the seeking feedback, I often do 360 interviews as part of my executive coaching work. But when we look at those areas that need development, that need to create a change, and we connect them to the values, to the person that you want to be, everything changes.
Yes.
Because I'll give you an example. If it's like somebody is working delegation, and this is something people often need help with at all different levels, but if they framed it as dumping more work on their employees or work that they should be doing, you know, it wasn't really happening because they were holding themselves back. But when we reframed that and connected it to a value that they had of personal growth and helping other people grow, oh, yeah, I definitely want to help other people grow. That's the person I want to be. Yeah. Suddenly you created that intrinsic motivation and connected it to a much deeper level for the person. So when you create that, when you think about different things that you want to do and really connect it to how you want to lead, who you want to be, then really the impact is just way greater.
Yes, yes. For the output and the outcome, and for the leader, for the person themselves. And so
Definitely.
I liked, you gave specific exercise for the core values as well. Several questions to think through, not just random pick a couple words, but then incorporate them in your daily life. And I wrote years ago about this, I call it the mirror test. And I wrote 15 or 20 years ago about it. And that's when you're brushing your teeth in the morning. So you're not adding a task. You're brushing your teeth, look in the mirror. And as you're making eye contact, who am I showing up as today? How am I showing up? What are my core values? How am I bringing those? Then you're in front of that mirror throughout different mirrors throughout the day, washing your hands. We're always in such a hurry, but just stop for a quick 5 seconds. How's it going? Am I living in alignment with who I say I want to be, with who I tell myself I want to be? And then at the end of the day, the test is brushing your teeth again. How'd you do? Did you live those core values? But every day it doesn't go that great. So it's okay if you don't, but at the end of brushing your teeth, you're done. So you don't ruminate on it anymore. And you don't, that's the end of the test. So start tomorrow as a new day.
That's brilliant, Kelly. And it's I talk about habit stacking in the book, and that's exactly what you're doing, right?
Exactly.
Because you stacked these questions into brushing your teeth.
Yes.
And you also did something else, because in the book, I also talk about the daily questions.
Yes.
So this is from Marshall Goldsmith, and the daily questions really are questions that you want to ask yourself about the effort you've made in reaching the priorities that you set, in your values, etc. So you've added that to your teeth brushing at the end of the day. And I love that it's also, okay, now you let it go.
Right. Right. I was taking that too many failures to bed at night, and too many like work situations, and like now I get in bed and I look around and like, even when I have a great day, those clients are not in bed with me.
I hope they're not, for your husband's sake.
Right. No, my husband would not be happy about that. Yeah. So we're not talking about all that in our bedroom, and I don't want to have like the meeting that maybe went fine, but could have done this, or, we can be so nitpicky about ourselves. I want to have all of that after I'm done brushing my teeth. That's the peace, peace. And tomorrow's a good day. Tomorrow, start over. So, and sometimes you can set yourself up. I do all that brushing the teeth, and then years ago I could be in traffic running late because I try one last thing before I leave the house, running late, and I'd be so annoyed, and then speeding. And I didn't get a lot of speeding tickets or anything, but I decided a long time ago, other people that know about traffic came up with these speed limits. I don't need to be judging that I should go faster than what those are. So it became, and then I don't have to worry if there might be a cop over there. There might be a cop. I don't have to worry about that because I just generally leave a little early and go the speed limit. So it reduced the stress by not setting myself up for that, I guess. So that kind of just choosing the behaviors that align with who you want to be.
And I heard something else interesting there, because it's like you also let go of that. Even there was no decision now of how fast am I going to go. It was accepting some sort of, I don't want to call it a higher power, but okay, somebody put thought into this.
Yes.
I'm accepting their expertise. And if I put that into my planning, I don't need to worry anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And now one of my hobbies is coming up with creative word choices while I'm driving, but I'm not really mad. I just like to see what kind of words I could string together for the traffic.
Interesting. I listen to a lot of books while driving.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I feel like my time is useful. And if it takes another 5 minutes or 10 minutes, really doesn't matter, and out of my control. I think for me, a big thing was just really letting go of things that are out of my control. It's like, okay, I left the house at that time. I am trying to get here now. Hopefully it's not that I'm running late to a flight, but
right. That some things have bigger circumstances.
Yes.
But even going to meet somebody for coffee or for a networking meeting or a friend or something, like, you don't want to be the one that shows up late all the time. And it seems like there are people that are always the late one, or I know you're in the Boston area, I'm in Kansas City, and when there's snow, the same people are late when there's snow as they were 2 weeks ago when the snow wasn't there. It's just a pattern, and we got to recognize those with ourselves.
Right. The excuses that we make.
Yes.
And do we want, but I think you mentioned something else there of who do I want to be? Do I want to be the late person? And by the way, I was definitely the kind of person that would add the one more thing before.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I don't want to be that. So I will leave a couple of minutes earlier to get there on time.
Yeah. And I think that's just a decision. And then when something happens, you're forgiven. You get grace because you're not the one that's always late.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What's your what's been the feedback that has one thing as you're doing these conversations and sharing your book, has anything come back to you that was a surprise, or what's one consistent comment that, have you heard something that's like, oh good, they're getting it? There's one main thing.
There's been different stuff, and I have to tell you, I got an email this morning from somebody. He said to me, Miki, I love core. It just helped me get down from a really hard ski run. I'm like,
whoa.
And I'm like, okay, that one I didn't expect. When he said, I read about you climbing Mount Kilimanjaro.
Yes.
And when I thought of that, and your self-talk and the sort of one foot after the other, that helped him with that. I think one thing that I've heard from people is connecting to being more thoughtful. That the idea that there is a way to leading with more intention, and that little thought into their heads. And so that's definitely been something. And the other part of it is just realizing and accepting we get in our own way. Okay. Take a deep breath, and now let's see what we can do differently. So that has definitely been feedback from people, just getting them to think about things a little bit differently, how they've done things differently going forward, and then going in and putting in the work.
Yeah, I love that. And different stages of life and career, and this will help in all of those. And life changes, so just adapting. And I say all the time, we're not here to be miserable on this earth. We are here to have an extraordinary experience, and it starts with how we are and how we show up, and then we can contribute to that experience.
Right. And I think, again, when I come back to state that I realized that I had a choice, and I have a choice on how to lead my life.
That's right.
And either, when you don't lead your life, you're going to be led by others. So you're going to be led by their priorities, by what they see as fun or what they see as meaningful. And then often you see people who have regrets, who are just rolling, and then suddenly they're looking back, and it's really, that's not what they were interested in. That's not what they wanted to achieve. And there's also, the part where when our life changes, also our values change, our priorities change with different phases of our lives, and seeing that that's normal. Okay. Right. And when you take that moment to really think, now, what do I value? What's important to me? What does success mean to me? Not my parents, my partner, society, so that I can live and lead in a way that's meaningful for me, to create the life that I want, rather than just sort of being pulled along by other people.
And the difference that makes in how you show up with influence and impact at work and after work. Go think about how you go home at the end of the day, and how you treat your family and your dog and the neighbors. And, this life can be more than following what other people plan for you, or also comparing yourself to other people.
Oh, definitely. And I can tell you that my coaching clients, I see as the biggest compliments when they tell me that the work has impacted their life at home as well.
Yeah.
We're the same person. Usually the same quirks we bring to work, we have at home.
That's right.
I had one client that, claimed that he's a good listener. At home, he's a good listener. Yeah, we asked his wife. He had a very different opinion, right? So we're the same person. And I also really loved reading research that actually our friend Janet Moore told me about, that I mentioned in the book, about the fact that when our our professional and personal lives are more aligned, so that when we show up living in the same way as both, not only do we feel better, but we come across as a lot more trustworthy.
Yes.
And think about it, because when you know, things don't quite align, and you suddenly see somebody behaving in a really different way in another environment, it's like, what's going on here? Which one is a lie?
Yeah.
So having that alignment it's not even just for you. It's also, again, trust is a big part of relationships.
That's right. And usually we're focused on, do I trust that person? But that alignment will help us be more trustworthy as well.
Yes.
And live in the alignment, especially when life gets challenging or something happens that was a surprise, and still stick with that.
Yes, it's definitely harder than, you know, it's much easier to show up as our best selves when everything is going smoothly and going well.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's why putting in the work and reflect is really important, because if you ask yourself, who do I want to be right now, but you haven't put in the work of thinking who that person is, it's much harder in the moment to also say, who do I want to be? Well, I don't know who I want to be. But when you know, it's, and I give an example in the book that Gary Ridge, who was the CEO of WD-40 for, I can't remember if it was 30 or 40 years. And it's a company that makes oil, but had an over 90% employee engagement, right? I mean, incredible leader. And he has a note everywhere that reminds him of the person that he wants to be, because he knows it's work and we need to keep on working at it, because we do it once, we do it twice, and then something will get hard and we may not. But if you know who that person is and you keep on reminding yourself, at the end, it becomes part of you.
Right. And even with the situations that are tough, or, you know, people that you don't get along with so well, or you don't know well enough yet, or all the different situations that can happen any day, in any one day, that you live in that alignment with who you want to be and what you are, just brings so much more peace. And that leads to the confidence and trust. And I talk about clarity, confidence, and trust in that order. You know, clarity, confidence, and courage in that order. Like clarity comes before that confidence, and then you can get courage from that. So this book will help anybody build that for sure. And and it is on Amazon, and then Miki, M-I-K-I, MikiFeldmanSimon.com. And you have some other things on there too for anybody that wants to go there as well. So thank you so much for coming on. Or do you want to say something else?
Yes, I had to connect your, you said confidence. Hold on, the 3 C's, and I just wrote confidence.
Clarity, confidence, and courage.
It is so true, because when you're clear about your values, your priorities, your strengths, like, okay, I can be confident in what it is that I bring to the table. It gives you so much courage in how you show up. So that clarity, confidence, courage, completely agree with that. And I can see how it all really comes together.
And I think your book is a good support for that. You know,
Agreed.
I think you talk about those 3 C's in alignment with like 3 or 4 other C's as well. They're in there, a couple different C lists. I saw that. So thank you so much for sharing today. And I'm going to let you go, but we could continue talking for more hours and hours on it all, and the examples, and great stories and great examples. And go out and check out MikiFeldmanSimon.com. And I'll look for questions, and we'll tag Miki if there's any through the post on LinkedIn or on YouTube. So thank you to anybody that watches. And Miki, my last thank you is to tell you, I am grateful that you wrote this book and that you did not listen to the person that told you that you can't write a book. And that was one of your examples in there. And my first instinct was like, I want to know that name of that person, and I'm calling them. So thank you for that, for doing it. You did the work, and it's appreciated.
Thank you, Kelly. So you can read the book about that example, and to know that not all feedback should be listened.
That's right.
Thank you, Kelly. Really appreciate you having me here today.
Yes. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Yes.
Stay on.